So I finally watched The Summer I Turned Pretty, and it's been a long time coming because, fun fact, I actually started watching season 1 like about 2 years ago, but I kind of like just dropped it. With all the recent drama, the wedding, the love triangle, and that horrendous ring, you know the one I'm talking about, everyone seems to be talking about the show. I realized I really wanted to finally be part of this experience and dive into what makes the show so beloved. So here we are, and let me tell you, I have a lot of thoughts. I'm going to be sharing my first impressions of the show. I'm going to give you a rundown on all the episodes on season 1. I'm going to dive into who Belly really is as a character. And of course, we have to settle the ultimate debate. Am I Team Jeremiah or Team Conrad? If you're new here, welcome to Once Upon A Ramble, a podcast where I ramble about stories and books, music, and movies, and shows as well, obviously. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And if you're listening to it on either of those platforms, you can also watch the video version of this podcast over on my YouTube channel, Told by Reem. And if you're already here on YouTube, hi, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future deep dives. With all that being said, let's get into it. When I started watching the show, I was expecting something a bit more upbeat, a little lighter and more positive. Don't get me wrong, it's not negative at all, but there is this slightly gloomy undertone that hangs over most of the episodes. Even in the opening monologue, Belly doesn't come across as a super vibrant character I thought she would be, but I'm gonna dive deeper into her character later on. That's not necessarily a bad thing. If anything, I think it's one of the reasons why the show works so well. It balances seriousness with light moments in a way that makes it feel less childish than some of the other teen shows out there right now. And it invites in a larger audience, regardless of whether someone is a teen or not a teen and wants to watch it and is interested in it. So yeah, that was what I felt the initial vibe was going in. Now, let's get into my first thoughts and reactions for each episode, which is where the real discussion starts, because there's a lot to unpack. For each episode, I had so many notes, but for this portion of this video, I'm not going to go through all those notes because, you know, we'd be sitting here for hours. I'm going to go over moments that really stood out to me, all of my notes that I made for each of the episodes. I've got you covered on my Instagram at Told by Reem. There's an entire story highlight just for The Summer I Turned Pretty season 1 with all my notes for each episode, so you can go check that out. That said, let's get into episode 1. So episode 1 is where Ellie arrives at Cousins. We get the intro monologue, and of course we get the party scene. First off, I loved the intro monologue. It immediately shows how Cousins is this safe, almost magical place for the family, spot where they can escape school, work, and all the other stress of the rest of the year. I thought that was so nice. Through the monologue and the flashbacks, we also got a glimpse into Belly's life, spending so many summers surrounded by the boys. And honestly, if I was in her place, every single summer doing that, at some point it's fine. You know, when you're very young, you don't really care about these things. But when you start growing up, and like it was shown in a lot of the scenes in the show, especially at the beginning, only surrounded by boys all the time, especially when you're going through that transition from being a child to being a teenager, yeah, I would cry. She's better than me in that regard. Hanging out with boys, I mean, it's fun, as I said. It must have been also at the same time for her challenging, you know, especially with them sometimes being rude or annoying her. Even when they first reunite, they throw her in the pool and basically gang up on her. But at the same time, I feel like while this would make me cry, it does make her very relatable, I guess. Another thing I really liked was the use of silence throughout the episode. I won't lie, it did give me a lot of secondhand embarrassment throughout like the first time watching it, but it also painted a realistic image, you know, of teenage awkwardness. I thought that was very, very well done. Now, the introduction of the brothers. You know, Jeremiah's entrance is smooth, he's kind, welcoming, and it was sweet that, you know, just Belly jumps into his arms. He's immediately established as that brother who is more, you know, laid back and kind of more safe when it comes to Belly expressing her feelings, because with Conrad it felt like she had a crush on him already, so it felt like she didn't want to ruin it. So again, it immediately establishes him as the easygoing one, even if he can be too laid back sometimes. Conrad, on the other hand, has that magical, whimsical introduction, which I also felt like, wow, that really captures how it feels to have a crush, doesn't it? Awkward also in the way that it reflects Belly's crush on him. And after watching that introduction, I don't understand how anyone can say that she might not end up with Conrad at the end after that first scene where we meet him and there's this music. It can be how the show is trying to reflect her feelings for him, but at the same time, I feel like there's so many, again, I'll talk about that later, but there are so many moments of the show where it felt like the show is pushing him to be that guy. And then we have the bonfire party. This is where we meet sweet, lovely Cam, which I was rooting for her love story with him. I think he's the most caring out of all of the boys, honestly. Should have been with him, you know, at the end. Not Jeremiah, not Conrad, just go for Cam. He's very clear about his feelings for her. That's what I liked about him, which is sad that she doesn't, again, end up with him. But I have to ask, though, that's another thing about this episode. Why does she kiss him on the same night she meets him for the first time? I know she knew him vaguely before, but you knew him vaguely. You've never actually spoken to him, I think. And on top of all of that, she does kiss him in front of Conrad and Jeremiah. Like, what? So many awkward moments happen also at the same time. Falling in front of Conrad, literally getting hit in the face by him. What is going on? Yeah, it was a lot. Episode 2 is where we get the iconic bike ride scene. It was so beautiful. And also the drive-in movie date. And our first little glimpse of Conrad getting jealous. Now, overall, I'd say this episode was a little bit less eventful. It mostly just sets the plot into motion. We get also a little bit more close to the characters and trying to understand who they are and what they represent. I love the bike ride scene, as I said. It's, you know, the ultimate summer moment. These moments are why people romanticize The Summer I Turned Pretty and just love it so much as a show. You know, the house, the setting, the aesthetic is also so nice and so pretty. Now, the drive-in movie date was also very cute. Awkward, again, but very sweet. This is where Conrad started sending mixed signals. Now that I'm older, I now know that no guy would do that, you know, without him actually having some kind of like interest in a girl. I totally understand why Belly also doesn't understand that, hey, he might have something for you going on here. It's very easy at that age to be like, what does this mean? Last thing I want to talk about for this episode is Jeremiah's and Steven's humor. I'm not sure if they're written that way on purpose, like were the writers actually attempting to make them funny, or was it intentional to make them feel so annoying and because their humor is not actually funny and, you know, like they're teasing Belly but it's not really actually working, it's stupid. So I'm not sure. But again, this was why I was saying that being surrounded by those boys every single summer, especially going through that transition, girl, like, good for you, Belly. You're not crying about it every single day. Episode 3 is Belly's birthday episode, and we really start to see more of the family dynamics. I love the flashbacks to past summers, especially Conrad being sweet to her, and how much, you know, tradition there is in this family. It shows the closeness that they have with each other, and it just feels very like warm and nostalgic. And again, I understand why a lot of people romanticize this show and, you know, have this connection to it. Because of Belly's confrontation with Conrad, which good on her that she did that also. I didn't mention that she did that in the previous episode. There is tension between them. He's, you know, noticeably heavier in his behavior, and as viewers we're in on the secret of what is going on with his mother, but, you know, the rest of those around him are not. It makes it really sad that everyone kind of like dismisses his sadness all throughout this first season, but I'll get into that later. Back to the birthday thing. He does ruin a bit of the mood during the gift scene. Like, what do you mean you forgot her birthday? Like, you have a gift for her. At least say happy birthday to her. At least say I'll get you one. I'll make it up for you with another gift. Like, what are you doing? Susanna's gift was so adorable, and I love their relationship. Like, her and Belly's relationship is so cute. She's one of the only people that were not kind of like taking Belly down for going through that change and going from being a child to being a teenager and going through that transformation. Like, supported her all throughout with the Deb ball and with the pearls and going out shopping and all of that. So I love that aspect of it. And as I said, Conrad pretends to forget Belly's birthday and doesn't give her the necklace that he got her. I thought this hesitation was cute because it did come off as him being like just getting shy and discouraged, because it meant this symbol, like, that he got her, the necklace, symbolized something deeper, not only just, you know, something out of kindness for him to give to her. After I watched the show and I went like to check what other people are saying on it online, I came across some people saying that this was actually him not wanting to overshadow his mother's gift to her, because like he didn't want to ruin his mother's, you know, moment with her, especially him knowing what was going on with his mother at that time. But I also think that there was maybe also some insecurity here, because like, oh, she got her those pearls, I got her silly necklace. But either way, it adds a lot. It adds another layer to his character that I think is already an interesting character to begin with. This episode, we also meet Taylor for the first time, and looking back, I actually like her a lot. She feels nuanced in a way that not all of the characters do on this show, but at first she does come across as kind of like a not really nice person and kind of toxic, who kind of makes, you know, as Belly said, that she doesn't want to feel that she always feels like the side character when it comes to Taylor, and Taylor is the main character and she's the side character. And I feel like this is a feeling that all of us girls can relate to, or boys also can relate to, when it comes to certain friendships that we have. So that made Belly relatable, but that made also us understand more about Taylor. But yeah, that changes definitely throughout the show when I look at Taylor as a character. Episode 4, this is the big 4th of July episode, and honestly, everything kind of comes crashing down in this episode. We've got cheating being revealed left and right, Steven, Jeremiah and Conrad's dad, Ellie's dad showing up with his new girlfriend, then obviously the fight between Laurel and Susanna. With all of that, we do get a sweet scene, two actually sweet scenes, with Belly getting drunk and finally confronting Conrad about the necklace, which I don't understand why she didn't need it to get drunk for her to do that. I'm not sure, but also we get the guest room scene where he helps her. And here I feel like this is where we get a glimpse that I've seen people online swooning over when it comes to Conrad's character, him being reliable and very kind, very loving, and very observant. I think this will be shown in future seasons more, where this kind of like cloud of like sadness isn't hanging over him all the time, because things do progress for the better after the first season. And towards the end, we get a glimpse of, you know, this like cloud just going away and him acting more forward with Belly. When he's not weighed down by everything going on with his mom, you can really see how charming and good he actually is. And of course, there's the fireworks scene. I have to say about it first before going into the almost kiss, but I have to say about what he says to Belly, like, you kind of have that effect on everyone. I don't agree with that line necessarily, because I don't feel like the show actually built up that moment very well. Up until that point of showing how Belly has an effect on everyone, I don't feel like she does, and I'll again dive into that more when I get into Belly as a character. I would have loved it if he said instead, you have that effect on me. I feel like that would have been more endearing and more kind of also revealing of his character and his feelings for her. I think that would have brought them more together. But that said, another very important element is the almost kiss. And this is the episode where my beef with Jeremiah begins. He sees Conrad and Belly about to have a real nice moment together, and he just ruins it. Yeah. By the way, he could have harmed them with the fireworks that he just like set off in their way. Like what is that about? For me, that's where he starts to feel less like a love interest, because I didn't even like think of him as a love interest at all. Even, and more like the villain of the series, honestly. His sudden interest in Belly feels forced and almost fabricated, and yeah, I'll get into that more later. Episode 5, the show slows down a little bit more, especially after, you know, the chaos of what happened with the 4th of July situation. We get these moments between Conrad and Belly, they're very sweet, and him like kind of being very happy, which I don't think we've actually glimpsed of him throughout this entire, you know, season so far. And also we get those flashback moments like him helping her dance, which I thought also were very cute. I don't feel like also those moments added anything. It didn't make their romance more believable, because it just showed the contrast between how he acted sometimes and how inconsistent he was in the present with her. Sometimes nice, sometimes not nice. So I'm like, girl, I don't believe you when you say you have a crush on him. He doesn't seem that, you know, great of a guy, honestly, especially with how he's treating you now. I also loved extra insight into Laurel and Susanna's friendship. That was very sweet, and also, wow, what they did. No comments about this. But then we're back to what feels like the writers trying so hard to make Jeremiah a sweet and perfect guy. For me, it's not really believable. I always think of him as more careless than caring. But maybe that's my bias showing, I don't know. Especially this sudden jealousy between him and Conrad. Where did that even come from? One minute Jeremiah's flirting with everyone, especially at the beginning episodes. Next, he's acting like Belly is the girl that he's wanted all along, which again doesn't feel like it was that way. Yes, I guess there were little glances here and there he gave Belly earlier on when he was driving her to pick up Taylor, and like it was cute, and I dismissed it into feeling like, oh, he's just fond of her. Like he likes her as a person in a friendly way, but I never got any deep romantic longing from that. By this episode, it feels like his competitiveness is intensifying. Belly starts to feel more like a prize to him that he's trying to win, rather than a person he actually has a genuine connection with. Next is episode 6, and I feel like this is the episode where Belly and Jeremiah share that more serious kiss. And I just sat there like being like, girl, where do your loyalties actually lie? Like you said, you've been having a crush on Conrad for forever. But again, I get her. I get why she did that, because like she felt like, it feels like she's been waiting forever for someone, and she's like, okay, I'm moving on with someone else. But make sure you actually got over your feelings for them before you do that, especially when they're brothers, girl. That's sad. It never even feels like she's really interested in Jeremiah. It's more like she's just interested enough, you know? That's very confusing to watch. Or just not even interested at all. I don't get that she has that chemistry with him. Like, he's a fun, goofy time, but I don't think there's that deep connection, that same deep connection that she has with Conrad. Then we get the game scenes where like they're competing. We have the handshakes, which again, I got secondhand embarrassment watching those, which were very random. And the only one that worked or was acceptable for me in terms of handshakes was like Belly's and Conrad's. That was the most acceptable, let's say that. And speaking of Conrad, this is the episode that again really shows that his mysterious bad boy vibe isn't about giving Belly mixed signals. It's about him carrying so much on his shoulders. He's not cold, he's just very misunderstood. Also, he shows his jealousy in this episode for a lot of the time. Also bond over winning, him and Belly, which also was a sweet touch. But what I didn't really love, honestly, about this episode is that Taylor's suddenly pulling like the whole Team Jeremiah thing. And I think this is, again, the show's attempt at being relevant and like kind of starting off this debate, which they don't need to do. It will start anyway. Also starting off a fan page to your friend and her potential like crush or whatever, someone she likes or is interested in. It just comes off very odd, and I didn't like that. Here, also in this episode, we finally start to get some depth from Jeremiah, who starts noticing some things going on with his mother. I'll give him credit for that, but it still didn't make me like him more so. So finally, made it to the last episode, iconic Deb Ball, the confrontation with Nicole, and of course, the most important part of it all, the kiss with Conrad. I was honestly so happy about this. I was like, finally. Before I dive into the romance, I have to point out something about the show overall, like the use of TikTok songs. There's nothing wrong with using TikTok songs. They're popular for a reason. They're great songs. But I feel like when you're using something like a song that was just trending while they're filming, which is like a few years back, at least this is my take on this and this is my opinion of this. After listening to it and after this season gets released, everyone kind of like has already moved on from those songs. So it feels a little bit weird like to listen to them after some time, especially when those songs are overplayed or like people are over them and now there are other TikTok songs that are popular. So I think they would have been better off choosing more timeless songs or like songs that are just like hidden gems and us figuring out those songs from the show rather than choosing something that's very trendy, because I feel like that keeps the show, very relevant still for years, and the choices of music in the show very relevant for years to come. But now back to Belly. This episode really made me ask, does Belly even deserve Conrad? We know who Conrad is, why he's so endearing, or why he's so also mysterious and sad all the time, and we root for him, right? But who is Belly outside of her crush on Conrad? All summer long, she focused only on her relationship with him without really considering who he was or what he was going through. Honestly, Nicole had a point with her confrontation. Belly is a bit of a player, and I feel like it's gonna drag on for the next 2 seasons, which, I'm rooting for Conrad a lot to get his happy ending. But yeah, for Belly, I want her to redeem herself as a character. But again, I'll get into that in a bit. Yeah, that makes her off-putting as a character. And again, she's also a teenager, so I can't really judge her. Try not to be too harsh. The moments between her and Conrad are so good here. The way he looks at her, also so mesmerized by her. The way he immediately steps up to like help her at the ball because Jeremiah kind of dipped. So reasonably so, Jeremiah, I'll excuse why he did what he did. Also shows Conrad as being more reliable and more kind of like that strong support system for everyone around him as a character. These little things highlight why Conrad and Belly just like have that undeniable kind of like tension, that spark. Also while they're dancing, the eye contact was there. Everything was just perfect. And in comparison to Jeremiah and Belly, I don't feel like they have that same bond together. We have another cringe moment, and that is the dance sequence for the boys. I don't understand what they were trying to achieve with that. I'm not the target audience for the show, and this is why maybe I will, look at scenes like that and be like, what is going on here? In my teenage years, I don't know if I would have thought it was cool. So real payoff though comes with resolution. Finally, we have this kind of like good wrapped up moment of everything going well, going better after Conrad, Jeremiah and their mother go through what they go through. But not only that, we also get the kiss. They finally share their first kiss together, and not only that as well, but what he says to her right before.
Because you really, really, really need somebody right now, and I don't want to be the kind of person who takes advantage of that.
I don't just need somebody. I need you.
I don't want you to need me. I want you to want me.
I do want you.
I just loved that line so much. It was so sweet. He's a poet. This is what I think of Conrad. It's also worth pointing out the difference between this kiss and the first kiss that Jeremiah and Belly shared. There's so much difference in the way that it's been edited, in the way that, the songs that are added, the scenery and the place of it all. I feel like here everything that's going on with Conrad from the first time we meet him to other moments together to the dance at the dep ball. I think it's way more intense. The music is picked out very much intentionally as well. That just shows, in my opinion, who she's kind of like meant to be with at the end of the day. So overall, I was satisfied with the ending, obviously, but I'll admit the concerning thing is now we got a cheating problem and conflict that we have to solve, because I'm pretty sure this counts as cheating, Belly. So after looking through each episode and reflecting on the show, I did realize that I do get away from the show or from this experience without a clear idea of who Belly actually is as a character. At times, she feels bland, not in the sense of being shy or introverted, which could have added depth to her character, but in the way that her personality shifts, depending on who she's around. Sometimes she's daring, other times reserved and awkward, and again, it could reflect that teenage experience, but I don't think that's what it is, because again, we have Taylor, we have Shayla, we have other girls around her who also feel that way sometimes, but they still have those established character traits about them, and also the conflicts and the flaws that they deal with. By the end of the season, I'm still unsure of what truly defines her. Part of me wonders if that was intentional to let viewers, especially younger ones, more easily project themselves onto her, because if Belly had more distinct traits, it might be harder for audiences to see themselves in her story. But personally, I find characters like Taylor or Shayla stronger examples of nuanced writing and nuanced characters as well, because they're flawed, yes, but at least we know who they are. Their flaws make them more interesting and more endearing in a lot of ways, which helps us as viewers connect with them more. With Belly, it feels like her main identity is her connection to Conrad or Jeremiah, which raises the question, outside of waiting for Conrad, who is she really? What are her actual desires, her defining qualities, the things that would make someone fall for her, beyond the love triangle? I hope she gets developed further in future seasons. Again, I am compelled to say that this is because, she is young and trying to figure out who she is, but also the other characters are also around the same age as her. So yeah, while I do like her and relate to her and sympathize with her a lot of the time, I still want to know more about her. So this is a note I wanted to make. And now we get to the ultimate debate, Team Jeremiah or Team Conrad. Love triangles like this always spark huge divisions. Think The Vampire Diaries, Twilight, also My Life with the Walter Boys as a recent example as well. Love triangles lead viewers to root for either one of the two guys who are kind of wanting to win over the main girl, right? So of course, The Summer I Turned Pretty is not an exception for that, and here we are. We have a huge division, I guess, with people rooting for Team Jeremiah and other people rooting for Team Conrad. Now, let's start with Jeremiah. He's fun, laid back, and on paper seems like the golden retriever, I feel like, which he gets referred to, I think one of the characters referred to him as that, and everyone loves him. But here's the thing, I just, again, didn't get convinced of his romance with Belly. It kind of comes out of nowhere. And while he has that easy charm, he also feels unreliable and careless. His insecurities aren't really about himself, they're mostly about competing with Conrad over Belly. And interrupting Conrad and Belly's moment when they were about to kiss, that doesn't feel like genuine love. In my opinion, it feels, competitive, like he wants her just because Conrad does. And also, it does make me question, how much does he like and love his brother? Why did he not back off? You notice Belly and Conrad's closeness. That's my perspective, at least, for season 1. Aside from that, and aside from do you actually like your brother? Why didn't you step away if you knew your brother likes her? And you haven't shown any interest in her up until that point, at least in my opinion. It makes me question again, what's your relationship with your brother? Why are you acting that way? You're supposed to root for him. That's what you do when you love your brother. But that said, that's my perspective on him again for season 1. Overall, I didn't really think that he's the right match for Belly. Now, Conrad, his relationship with Belly feels more genuine and deeper. The show gives them these magical, well-edited moments. The music, the framing, the tension, everything makes it feel more right. And also, Conrad is more complex. He carries a lot on his shoulders, keeps secrets for the benefit of others, obviously not because he wants to be secretive. And at least, again, that's what my takeaway from the show is. And he also tries to manage the chaos around him. He literally cleaned up after the mothers, like Susanna and Laurel, after they made a mess before they went up to party and do all the things that they did. And yes, he does sometimes struggle to communicate, but it's never out of bad intent. He's just, misunderstood, and that makes his moments with Belly more genuine. This also makes his character feel much more endearing, in my opinion. Their bond is deeper. Again, I'm not going to say it's the deepest thing, but in comparison to Jeremiah and Belly's bond, their bond, Conrad and Belly's bond, is way deeper. I feel like, especially with Belly crushing on him since childhood and the tension between them is there, it helps again strengthen and deepen that bond. Even when he's brooding or awkward, it reflects that he genuinely cares about not wanting to ruin things with Belly. And this is again something that he shared when he was like on the sailing boat with Cleveland, and just trying like to figure out how to express those feelings for her because he genuinely cares about her and doesn't want to ruin it with her. So compared to Jeremiah, Conrad's feelings feel layered and more complex and more genuine. Again, I just keep using the word genuine because they do feel more believable as well. Let's say that. So if you can't tell already, I am Team Conrad all the way. I think the show sets this up beautifully for Belly and Conrad to end up together. It shows in a lot of the foreshadowing that is done, and it seems like they are meant together, but things just keep getting in the way. The miscommunication and those little like silly teenage moments, and of course, Jeremiah. That's again my take on it. But overall, their bond, the longing for each other, also the yearning that Conrad does in those moments that he stares at Belly and the moments that they share, I think it's all just undeniable that Belly and Conrad are endgame. The only thing that I have to question is, does Belly deserve Conrad though? We know that Conrad deserves to be happy, but does Belly deserve the kindness that Conrad gives to her and, you know, what he is all about? So that's the question. And that's all I have to say about my first time watching The Summer I Turned Pretty season 1. I'm Team Conrad, but I really want to know, who are you rooting for? And what did I miss this season and the little moments in this season that you think I should know? Let me know in the comments. If you love this deep dive, subscribe for more. I will for sure be making a video on season 2, my first time watching season 2, very soon. So make sure to stay tuned for that. You can also catch the podcast versions of these episodes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want to connect more, my TikTok and Instagram are linked in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, we'll meet again next week. Mwah. Bye.